Welcome everybody. It's Matt Parker again. Just wanting to welcome you to our webinar today, which is entitled Secret Sauce of SAP PLM RD Recipes. With me on the line is Beth Perry. Beth is our PLM consultant for the process industry. Beth, you advance the slides. There we go. Beth, did you want to just kind of do a quick overview of your background?
Oh, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Beth Perry, and I've been consulting in the PLM space since 2016. I have over 25 years experience in the food industry. I've been working with SAP since 2006, starting on your side of the equation, which is working for a company and doing an initial SAP PLM implementation. And now I enjoy helping other companies do the same thing. My educational background is chemical engineering, so I have some feel for all of the different process industries. And looking forward to spending some time with all of you today.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Beth. So just a little bit about Leverx. Leverx is a company that specializes in SAP solutions. We're an integrator as well as a software company. We are headquartered in Mountain View, California. We have roughly 1,000 employees worldwide. We have centers, a delivery center here in Troy, Michigan. That's where I'm based out of. King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. We have a major delivery center in Minsk, Belarus, and also locations in Poland, Ukraine, Austria, and there's a few others that are scattered throughout the world that aren't on the slide, but either are opening soon or are currently open. Next slide. Just a little bit about our delivery process. We offer full end-to-end delivery services, all the way from requirements gathering to developing blueprints, full project delivery, go live, follow up, maintenance, etc. So if you are in the market for a delivery partner, we can certainly handle those tasks. Next slide. And I mentioned that we're also a software provider. Leverx specializes in SAP accelerator products. We have a workflow tool called IPS. It is a powerful, intuitive workflow solution that's built directly in SAP. So there's no need for custom APIs to use the tool, and it's seamless. It works throughout the entire application and across your enterprise. Our VLOC suite is a data migration and integration tool. Low code, no code, very intuitive to use. Simple. You don't need additional programmers to use this. All of our tools can be used right by business users. BOM and materials automation. We have a tool called BMax. Again, it's a rules-driven engine. It has workflow built in, and it allows your business users to automate and manage their materials and BOMs. And then we have a suite of intuitive SAP interfaces called the IQ suite. And again, this is an excellent suite of products that if you're looking for a solution to make SAP even better, that's available as well. With that, I wanted to turn it over to Beth so we can dive in and talk about the secret sauce of recipes.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Matt, and welcome everybody. Okay, I really like these short 30-minute webinars because it allows me to concentrate on a specific area. And really the concentration area today are the calculation results views in recipe objects. So recipe calculations, they're based in the recipe formulas. Just a refresher for everybody. A formula is your inputs and outputs with their quantities. Every input and output is a specification. You build specifications, they have header information and built property trees where your data is maintained. And some of that data is used in these calculations, and they actually work on contributions from individual inputs. But the calculation results views are truly a garbage in, garbage out situation. The calculation results you get out at the end are only as good as the data that you put in. So data entry is really important here. We're going to talk about the 4 different calculation results types, the ones related to your input quantities, the quantitative types, the qualitative types, and the costs. And the thing I'd like to say about this is that when you look at the labels for the sub-views for the calculation results, it is very food industry centric. Now, I came out of the food industry, so I'm very comfortable in it. But even if you're not in the food industry, there are parts and pieces and potentially all elements that anyone in any process industry can use. And I want to show you a few of those now. So you can take give a big sigh of relief now, going to exit slides and go to system. So I am going to be working in the Leverx demo system. What this means is that it's not going to look like your system if you already have one. It is configured to do a lot of different things, none of which are going to be specifically the thing that you do. Also, I am using the NetWeaver Business Client interface. And again, you may be using Fiori, so there's some look and feel differences that you may see, but the functionality is basically the same. So we're talking about recipe calculation results. So I'm going to start with a recipe. I told you I came out of the food industry, and I not only came out of the food industry, I came out of processed meats. So when I go to put together recipes, and I'm not a product developer, so never ever actually try to make, and God forbid eat, anything that I put out. These things are designed to demonstrate functionality and not to actually create the products and taste good. So I tend to go to hot dogs because they're simple. Everyone kind of understands them. And I call this one, it's a sort of beef hot dog. The sort of is because it looks like it kind of has the things in it that a hot dog would actually have, but it's not necessarily the way you would make or put together a real hot dog. So sorry about that. All right, so I want to start with the formula again because this is the basis. So I just built a very, very simple formula. I have 2 types of beef, water, a spice blend, and soy protein concentrate. And just so you can see what I'm dealing with, I am going to go ahead and open up the sort of spice blend. Again, it's sort of because, yeah, it does have stuff in it. But again, I don't know that I would necessarily actually try to make it. So I created a property tree for this and potentially other future recipes where the only things in the property tree are things related to the different calculation areas. So I have calculations related to the formula, the calculation results from the recipe, which is today's topic, and some calculations related to the ingredient label. that are baked into here. And I just want to show you, just so you can see it in its pure form at the specification level. Everything in the property tree is a standard SAP VAT and class. It comes out of the box. You don't have to do anything. These things are already wired up. The data comes out of the specs from here and it goes to the calculation results view, and you don't have to do anything. Now, the names of the things may not match what you're doing, but the functionality is already built in for you. So this is a real easy way, especially for your formulators, your product developers, to get a quick view of, I'm trying to do this, is it coming out the way that I want? And I am just going to open up the standard composition here so you can see what that, I have a lot of things in this blend. So I look back at the recipe. So one line for the blend, and there's about 8 things actually inside the blend. And I'm going to jump right into the calculation results. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the fact that every tab in SAP is called a view. So calculation results is a view, and all these individual things are subviews. So the 2 views that are related to the inputs are the ingredients view and the composition view. So the ingredients view essentially is your formula in brief, because what it does is it gives you all of your level 1 ingredients in descending order of predominance by percentage. So it's a quick and dirty form, essentially, of your formula. And for those of you who have worked with the formula input and output screen, you know, there's potentially a lot of columns. So, I mean, if you look at the settings on the formula, there's a lot of data that you could have up on the screen. So your ingredients view is really, it's a very clean view of this. So these are all of the things that I'm not showing on the screen, but I could. So all right, so here's my ingredients. Again, it's literally, these are my inputs, my level 1, this is what goes in, and this is how much on percentage. So this particular formula is set up on mass. You can, of course, work in volume as long as, especially if you have a mixture of stuff, you have density values to support it. So the composition view has a lot more things in it, because now it's gone into, and you don't see that spice blend anymore. Now you see all of the things that came out of that standard composition vat that I showed you in the spec. And here is now essentially your exploded composition. Again, this is a very simple recipe. The formula is very simple. None of my inputs are outputs of other recipes, and only one of them has composition. I kept it simple so that didn't have to go through a lot of questions on what the heck is this formula and what did you do? Because then we never actually get to the calculation results. So composition, is this valuable for food companies? Yes. Is it valuable for other companies? Well, yes. I mean, composition, you can go as deep and as many layers as you want. So there's definitely value added here. The other thing that this particular view does, and again, whether this is important to you or not, it works and puts everything on a descending order of predominance. So this is literally every single individual item, whether it came in by itself or it came in as part of a spice blend, that is actually in this sort of beef hot dog recipe. And now you can see some of the things and perhaps get a better feel for it. It's like, don't actually make anything that looks like this because it really won't taste very good. So I'd like to then jump over because, like I said, these views and the labels look like they are very food centric. So I am going to go back and open another recipe that I created for this. And I did this so I could get as far away from food as you can possibly go. This is a recipe for a packaging assembly. And again, it's not a very good one. I didn't actually spec out any of the packaging components. They just exist as things. So essentially, this is an assembly where there's a corrugated shipping case that contains 12 jars. Each jar has a lid and a paper label around it. I do not know what's in any of those jars. It's definitely not the sort of beef hot dogs. But what it is, I don't know, and it doesn't matter. And I am actually using this particular recipe and this formula to calculate my total tear weight of my packaging. So I am actually saying that this assembly consists of 12 jars, 12 lids, 12 paper labels, and 1 case. And since I was very good about entering the data at the spec level, the conversion factor for piece, which allows you to actually get a mass, I'm actually able to calculate a total tear. So this is like one step in calculating a gross weight of a product if your saleable unit is at the shipping case level. But this is a recipe like any other recipe. It also has calculation results. And again, since, like I said, the configuration in the Leverx demo system is very general, that means that it works for everybody, but not specifically for anyone in particular. So I have my ingredients view, which again is just what went in descending order of predominance by percentage, and my composition view, which in this case, since I don't actually have anything with composition, my composition view and my ingredients view are absolutely identical. Can packaging have composition? Absolutely. If you're using a multi-layer film, you can absolutely spec out each layer if you want to. Does that have value here? I don't know. That depends on what you're doing and for your industry and your company. But again, that this isn't always doesn't necessarily always have to be relevant to food. So I'm going to move back to my sort of hot dog and move on to the nutrients view. And this one is probably the biggest misnomer that there is, because what this actually is there anything that you want to calculate on a numeric basis? So if you have quantitative calculations based on your formula overall, this is where you want to put it. It doesn't matter whether they're nutrients or not. So I am actually going to go ahead and pull up a different view, and you can see that I did enter some values. I will say that I did actually put values in for a lot of the items. Are they correct? No, but they are numbers and they do add. The important thing to know about any quantitative calculations that you're doing is that you're using the configured default basis is what comes up. That's the 100 grams, which is actually pretty much a standard for the food industry. 100 mils would be more of a standard for the beverage industry. But you'll also notice that this is an editable field. And I don't have to look at 100 grams. If my hot dog is only 43 grams and I want to see what the nutrition is, I just enter it at a bigger hot dog. It's 57 grams. So this is calculations on the fly for whatever you need. Again, this is actually stuff that you would see on a nutrition facts panel, but that's certainly not the only things that you can look at here. You can look at thresholds. If you're only allowed to have 200 parts per million of sulfites, you can roll up what's your total amount of sulfites, across all of your inputs. Additives, intolerances, anything that you can calculate. The extra thing that I set up for today is actually for hot dogs, there are some restrictions on the quantities of the preservatives that you can have. So based on USDA regulations, for a hot dog, you're only allowed to have up to 156 parts per million of nitrite and 550 parts per million of erythorbate. And that sounds good. But remember I said that the screen is for roll-ups against the formula? The basis of those restrictions is the weight of the meat. The system doesn't know what the meat is. System is not smart. We can look at it and say, okay, I've got 2 beef components. This is meat and that's meat, and together that's all the meat. System isn't going to know how to do that. So what I actually did is I created, and for the nutrients, diets, allergens, religious certificates, genetically modified, all of those subviews, you have basic specs. So there's nutrient specs, even if they don't have to be nutrients. And then there's nutrient group specs. So I created a group spec for hot dog restrictions, and I entered the correct things at the input level. So I know, and I can roll up how much meat do I have, how much nitrite do I have, how much erythorbate do I have. Now, because this is not, the restrictions are not on total formula weight, they are on the meat weight, you could, if you wanted to, get your phone, bring the calculator up, or bring the calculator up from your laptop or your PC and, actually divide your numbers out. But I'm lazy and I don't like to do that. So I am actually going to go ahead and essentially do my batch weight, which was actually 1,398.5 kilograms. I'm just going to leave it in grams because I don't want my numbers to get too big. And because I essentially did the industry standard, and for meat industry, the standard is essentially to work off 100 weights of meat. I upped that 1 order of magnitude because I don't like to work with a lot of significant digits if I don't have to. But essentially, what I'm seeing here is that I have 1,000 grams of meat and then this much nitrite and this much erythorbate, also on a gram basis. And now I can eyeball. There's obviously some rounding error here in the 6th decimal place. That's actually 1,000. Is that my parts per million of nitrate is 155 and my parts per million of erythorbate is 545. So I have met the restrictions. I can eyeball it. I don't have to do anything else strange. So if you have things, regardless, your product line, your industry, that you need to roll up that a numeric calculation, there are ways to get around things that are not necessarily related to formula weight without going through actually working the bodies or doing any coding to do compliance check type of calculations. So you don't need to necessarily need to get a developer involved. The diets, allergens, and genetically modified and religious certificates are just 4 different examples of qualitative. But before I move on to that, and we're almost out of time already, I just want to show you what I rolled up under nutrients in the packaging assembly. So obviously, well, you can have, I guess, edible packaging, and I guess it could have some kind of nutrition in it. But I actually created a nutrient group for sustainability where there's potential to collect sustainability information on recycled content, PCR, bio-based content of your packaging. And all of these are in percentages, which means that your space quantity that comes up from default is kind of cancels itself out. Percentages really just calculate and roll up. So overall, based on the information that I entered in the inputs, overall I have about 37.7% of recycled content. In this case with 12 jars, 12 lids, and 12 labels. And if you want to see the contribution from each particular one, you move to the by ingredient subview inside there. So that actually shows you what it is per item and per your output. So I am actually, because we're out of time, we only had the 30 minutes. I apologize that we did not get through all the information, but just want to assure everybody that all of these things are useful, and that if you do have things that you want to roll up qualitatively, there is some simple configuration to change these labels. So if you're not rolling up religious certificates, maybe you're rolling up some other kind of certification, you can actually rename it and say, if it's important to know that your inputs, do they have this certification or not? You can absolutely use this. So with that, I guess I'm going to cut it off because I don't want to ask everyone to take more time out of their day. That's not fair to you and what you have to do. So Matt, did we collect any questions
Yeah,
or?
we did. Yeah, thank you, Beth. First question was, can the calculation down to composition handle reactive chemistry?
No, the system it's not a scientific calculator. It essentially runs a simple material balance. So it adds, subtracts, multiplies, and divides, and it really doesn't understand what you're doing. Most of the things that you do around chemical reactions, you have to manually enter compensating factors. So if you have those factors in there, yes, it can calculate things. Will it calculate exactly what you want? It depends. We'd really have to look at it in more detail.
Thank you, Beth. Um, Again, just a quick reminder, if you have questions, please type them either in the chat window or in the questions window, and we'll get to those as they come in.
Right, and because we're already over anything that's been submitted that we haven't talked about, we will respond, and everyone will get a copy of those questions and as well as the answers to them. So want to thank everybody for joining. Appreciate you giving us a part of your day, and also not just questions. If there are other areas of the system that you're interested in having either another short webinar or possibly a longer webinar, on different topics or even related topics that you need more details on, please let us know.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. If there aren't any other questions, that's going to end our session for the day. We'll hang on maybe for another minute. Want to thank everybody for attending. And as Beth mentioned, we'll send out a copy of the presentation as well as the questions and answers. So thank you so much. That will conclude our webinar for today. Have a nice day, everybody.
All right, thanks, everybody.